Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by PrizePicks. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine. You know, the weather changes and my allergies get out of control a little bit, but that's actually my own fault because I haven't taken my Zyrtec for about 3 days. But other than that, just trying to keep a voice. How y'all doing?
Good. Of course, we are joined by Brenden Nunes from the Kings Bulls podcast. Brenden, how are you?
Doing well. Before I even knew Sean was going to say that, I was also going to complain about my allergies. I've been having very aggressive sneezes, and similar to Sean, I should probably start taking my Zyrtecs.
I too should be taking Zyrtec or something. I'm pretty beat up. It's been a long week of talking on the radio, and I don't think it's going to let up. But the voice feels like it wants to go, and that's not usual. So I've got hot tea. Let's see it. What do you guys got? Podcast candles.
Oof.
Well, Brendan is definitely
no podcast candle, Brenden.
Yeah, I got nothing going on right now.
What?
I saw it. I saw it somewhere.
Tree Farm. It sounded like, I don't know. It sounded because it's got like a Christmas ornament kind of thing.
Yeah,
but it wasn't like Christmassy smell, so it kind of smelled like fall, if there was a scent. So,
what?
Is a tree farm different smell than just a tree?
Well, if you've ever been out to cut down your own Christmas tree like a savage and get out there and really get manly and uproot one,
I do that every year.
Do you?
The day after Thanksgiving, we do it every year.
It's so unnecessary. But those are kind of like tree farms, I suppose, and you can Griswold it and throw it up on your vehicle. But I remember doing that as a kid, and I always felt like there was a certain scent out there, like in Apple Hill, where it's like the foothills and the all that stuff. So
it smells like a memory.
It kind of smells like a memory. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, and it's not why I picked it, but yeah,
Okay.
Tree Farm.
We've had the strange memory discussion before. The smells and memory. Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, everyone's good. Yeah, ready to do this thing. Okay,
Ready.
Hope so.
Sweet. Okay, so if you're watching the podcast on YouTube, we'd love it if you gave us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff. We'll try to timestamp when we can, but right now all three of us are running around like crazy people trying to cover the Sacramento Kings while doing like 3 other jobs.
It's still a free podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be
cool.
some ad insertions
That's
now
fine.
that we're part of Blue Wire. So we did join Blue Wire, which is cool. They're going to handle ad insertions and things like that, so we don't have to, and
painful.
we can, keep doing what we do without having to chase a whole bunch of stuff outside. Let's see, outside of that, jump on board with the Kings Beat. We're working on it. We're trying to do off the record with the Kings Beat virtual happy hour or a happy hour in person. Again, we'll get it done. We'll get it done soon. But now we have holidays to compete with. But we'll figure it out. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber to get invitations to all that kind of stuff. We got a lot to talk about today. The Sacramento Kings are rolling. They've won 4 in a row. The first thing I want to touch on is before we get into the crushing of the Los Angeles Lakers, which happened on Wednesday night. Between our last 2 podcasts, Mike Brown surpassed 400 wins as an NBA head coach. Kind of a cool moment. What were you guys like? What did you take away from the evening of him reaching the 400 win plateau, which he said he did not know, which is possible, but it's something that we definitely, as like media members, were starting to get wind of, and could confirm pretty easily by looking at his basketball reference page. But what did you guys take away from the big night where Mike Brown and his team ran over the Oklahoma City Thunder and got his 400th win?
Yeah, he's not a big milestone guy. But I think he understood the moment coming against his former team that really afforded him his first coaching opportunity back in 2005. So
it was the Cavs. It wasn't my bad. It was the Cavs, not OKC.
Cavaliers. But to that point, like realizing, I think Mike is he's aware of the moment. He's aware of, he doesn't like to put any attention onto himself. He's always deflecting and wanting to share accolades with coaching staffs or players or those around him. And he did that, but it's hard to do when it's centrally focused on your own career, your own coaching career. And I think he had a little, he was a little uncomfortable with it, let's just say. But he got into character very quickly after that win against the Cavaliers, where it was neat to see him with the, not only the crown and the throne, but him throwing up the 4 and just really, as I say, getting into character and putting an image that will just last for a long time. I'm seeing great memes about it. I'm seeing, I said I want to see it on a t-shirt. I would purchase a t-shirt with that image of him on there. Don't need any writing around it, just need that image. So maybe we can make that happen with our good folks over at
Oh
what
yeah,
was the Brickyard, right?
Brick House.
Brick House
Yeah.
Industries.
Yeah, Brick House Industries.
Gotta
That's a good
say,
idea. I'll reach out to Jim.
Need some big boy sizes too, by the way. They shrunk. It's a little that's my problem, not anyone else's. But
did they shrink, Sean?
Did they? Did a little bit. It was a little unfortunate. I was like, ooh. Anyway, so seeing Mike get that moment, being able to kind of step outside of himself a little bit was certainly a lot of fun, and kind of comes at a great time for this season because the team, albeit hasn't even played 10 games, and there they are looking like themselves again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it culminates into what now is a 4-game win streak.
Yeah, good stuff. Brenden, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that the 4s that they've been kind of thrown up in those post-game pictures ironically happen to fit the 400 wins. As Sean pointed out, cool moment that it happens to come against the team that he got his first start against. I can't find his career percentage as a head coach, but I know it was up there. They played a graphic last night.
I think it's
that he was in really good company. Yeah, like for reference, just to put into perspective how many games 400 really is, De'Aaron Fox has won 177 games in his NBA career. Obviously hasn't been on great teams. Harrison Barnes, been in the league a long time, won 447 games throughout the course of his career. So definitely an impressive feat for Mike Brown. I love that, he does not want to take that credit necessarily, wants to recognize Keegan's big night. Keegan had probably the best defensive night I feel like I've seen him have that night, and was definitely going to get the recognition for that in their little fun post game. But Domas and Jordy and them took it into their own hands, and it made for a fun moment. And just the energy around this team right now seems to have flipped so much. I don't even know necessarily if internally they were necessarily all too concerned after those wins, or after those losses to Houston. I know Mike pitched it as adversity being a good thing, and they're actually being a silver lining here. But the energy around this team through these 4 wins, they're playing their brand of basketball. They seem to be having fun in doing so. So they're trending in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, Brenden, I want to ask you this: like, how much different is it for you? Like, we do this on occasion where we kind of go back to Brenden, who's seeing things with fresh eyes. But you were there for Luke Walton getting fired. You were there for the Alvin Gentry era. You were there for like Mike Brown's first year. But to see something like this, the accolades come to a coach, I just want to get your perspective on how cool it is for you to actually be part of like the scrum and then go in the locker room afterwards after something like this happened.
Yeah, honestly, I think I don't even realize the extent of the moment until I kind of fully do my research on it. Like I didn't realize coming into the day that this was necessarily a feat he could reach. And I had to look up those HB De'Aaron numbers and stuff like that just for my own point of reference to really comprehend how impressive winning 400 games in this league is and doing it on such a good winning percentage. Mike has been easily my personal favorite coach to cover. Like Alvin was very fun, and the Luke thing was weird for me because I came in not long before he got fired. So kind of a weird situation from my perspective, but like the group has clearly embraced Mike Brown's identity. We talked about last year, like him being a defensive coach, but he's leaned into the offense because that's their strengths. This year, it's all about how can we get better defensively, and the team is totally bought into that. So it's a cool moment for sure. It's cool to see his team embrace that moment and celebrate it with him, and just be writing this and really his ideas to some success recently.
Yeah, it's been a fun week. Like this team, it does have a really good spirit. We saw The overtime victory over Portland, which was still a struggle, didn't look like the Kings yet. But then we get to that Friday game against Oklahoma, and all of a sudden the Kings look like the Kings again, and they're like tough. And like I would put OKC as like one of the more physical teams, or like they like to get in your face. They like to play defense. Typically, they're not a great rebounding team, but the Kings just buzzsawed through them. We get to the Cavs, and again, that's a team that you would think the Kings would have problems with. They're long, they're athletic, and they were no competition. Like the Kings have, I think 3 of their last 4 are wire to wire wins, and the one other game, I think like their opponent had a 3-point lead at some point during the game, and that was it. So like they're not just winning, they're winning like very, very convincingly. And that takes us to the Lakers game last night, a 125-110 win for the Kings. They just like, let's start with Domantas Sabonis. Like, first of all, he's 8-0 against Anthony Davis. What he did to Anthony Davis in that game was like almost shameful. Like Anthony Davis and him are like the 2 guys that you're kind of looking at behind Jokic and Embiid as the best centers in the game. And head to head, it's not even a competition. And I'm just kind of surprised. We watch him walk into that game. What's he put up? Like 27 points, 16 rebounds, like 7 assists, something like that. A bunch of steals, maybe a block or 2. Just where are you guys at with watching Sabonis and sort of even if we look at like his last 4 games, while in the 4-game win streak, Sabonis is at 24 points, 12.3 rebounds, 9.8 assists, but also 1.3 steals and 1.5 blocks per game. He's shooting 67% from the field. Like he's just running through these teams like crazy. And I think we're seeing sort of like the effect of De'Aaron Fox being back, but also just an outstanding player having a really nice run.
I don't think it's a coincidence we've seen him be aggressive after that 4 field goal attempt game in Houston. Like he needed to be better in that game. He needed to do more, specifically without De'Aaron Fox still at that point. And since then, 14 field goal attempts, overtime win against Portland, against OKC, 15, Cleveland, 10, and then 19 last night against the Lakers. And these are teams that have good rim protection, specifically the latter 2. And he's just going through guys, Mobley and Jared Allen, just going through them. Even Anthony Davis just putting his shoulder down, and his touch was great. I thought last night he had some little baby hooks with his left and finishes off the glass. Like Sean has been asking a lot for Domas to be more aggressive, and we're seeing it, right?
Well, yeah, and they made little subtle adjustments to the offense. And I think, what you were talking about with the Thunder game and kind of rolling that into the Cavaliers and then the Lakers, like you mentioned, James, that they look like themselves again. They look like Kings basketball again. But I'd actually offer a different perspective there and say that they're doing things we haven't seen them do and sustain, like being able to defend without fouling, being able to have a sense of physicality, being able to endure some of the physicality against some really physical teams. And those are 3 teams that I think kind of stand out because all 3 of them tend to be a little bit physical, I say, especially the Cavaliers. And for whatever reason, they found their stroke along the way as well. So having that, you fought through that, you've seen some of the benefits of that. I think Kevin Huerter, really kind of returning to form, kind of started probably back in right before that Portland game where he's
It was the
a little bit
Houston
more
game.
efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah, it
more
was his
efficient.
second Houston game.
And kind of rolled on since then. But to focus back what you were saying with Domas, I think that's helped him immensely. Them being able to kind of hold their mud a bit, and having Fox back is obviously huge, but he's been so much more active. And yeah, that four shot attempt game sticks out like a sore thumb for me because that was like wholly inappropriate and unacceptable for a Kings team that didn't have De'Aaron Fox. So seeing Domas kind of get that vibe again, kind of have that swagger again is huge. I don't know what goes into the 8-0 record against Anthony Davis, but I will say I have not been all that impressed in games that I've seen from the Lakers this season, and it starts and ends with Anthony Davis completely. I think there's a big ramp up for him, and he's had a few nice scoring games, but ultimately he doesn't look like the same guy who can it looks like he's afraid of getting hurt. That's every time. Maybe that's my own perception because we've seen him injured so often. But so far in this season, with LeBron not quite being LeBron again, he's obviously fighting father time and not the guy anymore, right? And they need Anthony Davis to really be the guy. And he showed that he could do that last year when he was healthy. But this year, it seems like a really slow launch, like a soft opening of a restaurant or something, where it's a slow ramp up. He's not being as physical. And Domas, I honestly don't think it was anything that Domas did. I think he's just his craftiness offensively. I just don't think, for whatever reason, either AD is healthy, gives a damn. I don't know what it is. I just haven't been impressed with him. And I think Domas absolutely punished him. That was great. But I think it had more to do with what's wrong with Anthony Davis and what was wrong, what Domantas Sabonis was doing.
Yeah, I would like to agree with you, but I would also point out that he did the same exact thing to Jared Allen, and then he did the same exact thing to Chet Holmgren. Like what we're seeing is, even DeAndre Ayton, he like buzzsawed through DeAndre Ayton. So I would say that like I get what you're saying about Anthony Davis not being that guy, and I agree with you. He's not that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't want to take away from. I don't mean to take away from Domas because
yeah, yeah,
again,
yeah.
he's fantastic, and that's what they need from him night in, night out. That has to be ever present for them, in my opinion, for them to have that success. But yeah, I don't know. I was really just trying to hammer home a point with AD where I don't get it. I don't understand. If you're a Laker fan right now and you're looking at him, and I know there's not many Laker fans that are listening to this podcast, but you've got to be. I think you got to be concerned.
Oh, I would totally agree. And, I would point out that, like you kind of said, well, LeBron is going out there and, he's just not the same. LeBron last night, 28 points, 12 rebounds, no, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, 4 steals, a block. He did turn the ball over 6 times. His block was a crazy ass LeBron James chase down block, which we've seen. It's so funny that we still look at him and like, oh, he's just not the same. He's not the same. Except for he still kicks the living crap out of anyone who's in front of him. And, like really he is a marvel to watch still. It's totally crazy to watch him
Like,
like at his age at almost 40. Well, he's almost 39, like still perform at this level.
yeah, I mean, I know it was one game too, but even in the course of that game, Kings had 20 steals in that game.
20 steals. Absolutely
20.
crazy.
And I want to say 6 of them came from LeBron James just losing the handle and getting it taken away, literally having it thieved, like De'Aaron Fox literally taking his lunch. And you saw it like 5 or 6 times in that game.
Again and again, man. And it wasn't just him. I mean, when you have 20 steals, that's crazy. And then the deflection number was even higher. I think Will Z stats had it like they had 26 deflections, something like that. You just remember back to the plays where like Keegan Murray's waving his hand like in the air, like and just knocking the ball out of bounds. You're like, what? They're just like the defensive intensity has changed, even if they still are giving up 50% from the field. And I think both of the last 2 games.
Keegan's
Let's get
defense has been amazing. Like
yeah, I
he
totally
was
agree.
ridiculous that last game.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to Keegan because I think that's a much larger discussion because it's not just how good he's been defensively, but what it means if Keegan is going to be this guy. So we're going to touch on that in just a minute. Let's get to a little bit of busy work though. Sean, you were able to get that Trey Lyles has been cleared. Why don't you give us the latest on Trey Lyles?
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw him ramp up his workload again. He had another individual workout before the 6-game road trip, before they went to LA. And if anyone saw that video, I mean, he was going at it probably harder than he did 2 weeks ago, I think it was, before they went to Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's had a lot of. I still don't know if he's had a setback. I think they're just being really overly cautious, which is a good thing, and he's just not quite there yet. But yeah, he's able to return to basketball related activities, which is good. And they're going to see how this progress goes. But yeah, he's out for tomorrow. He won't play in San Antonio. But this is it's a positive sign. Hopefully get him back. I think he's kept the weight down, which is really good. Especially because he came into camp in such terrific shape and really building off of the success he had last year. So, yeah, right now it's just a wait and see how these next really few days, maybe a week goes before he can really start to become a possibility to play in some games.
Sean, I gotta say that workout did it look that much different than the 1-2 weeks ago?
A little bit, because he wasn't running the floor. Everything happened in the half court, really in the key and
Yeah.
around the paint.
Yeah.
He was having to run the floor, and you could tell it was kind of kicking his ass a bit as a guy who probably hasn't been able to run very much. So a little bit different for sure. I was curious to see if they were going to have coaching assistants kind of just hitting him with pads down low a little bit just to kind of see how he absorbs the contact. I kind of thought that might be coming, but no, I think they were really just going to see how he was able to run the floor, launch from three, get in the paint, dunk a few times, come back out and just keep this system kind of rolling. And this is back and forth, run down the court. And if you see the video, I mean, he's not running top speed. It's a very light jog, but it was whooping him.
Yeah, the Kings need him. They need him bad. Just because you can see where the hole is there at the center/power forward position, where he's just a stabilizing force for this team. We also have the injury to Alex Len, high ankle sprain, right ankle. Karis LeVert, I don't even want to get into that. Like, he's just such a sloppy player, and just lost his footing 17 times in that game and fell down. And the one time he did fall down,
there's nothing dirty about it, though.
Yeah, what the hell?
There's nothing dirty about it. It's just just come on, man.
James is screw you, Karis LeVert.
No, it's not that at all. It's my goodness, man. It's like watching Moses Brown out there just flailing at people.
Did you have the more than on Alex rebounds, or?
Yeah, I think something.
No, I would never take the more than Alex rebounds. So, all right. So, you're listening to the Kings Beat podcast here on Blue Wire. Let's get into Brenden brings it up, the PrizePick thing. PrizePick, of course, is a sponsor of the show here at the Kings Beat, and it's become, dare I say, like a nightly ritual with some of the other our media friends, where we're all making picks, or at least some of us are making picks, and Sean is not. So I don't know. It's kind of cool, especially this weekend. I was thinking about it this weekend. The Kings played Dallas Mavericks, but one of the cool things about PrizePicks is that if you want to do a larger, a 6 pick for the day, you don't just have to stay on one sport. You can actually look at the Kings versus Mavericks. You could also look at the San Francisco 49ers game, which will be played around the same time. And so you can pick and mix and match, which is kind of cool. Brenden, have you hit any of these lately? Because my goodness, I'm so bad. I did, I think one game I did okay, but overall it's been pretty ugly.
Yeah, I did participate last game and thought I felt okay, and it did not go great. It was I think I had Harrison points and rebounds together or something. It was a low number. I know everybody told me I was dumb.
Yeah.
And yeah, something like Donovan Mitchell assists I was really close to. And there was a Jared Allen free throw that would have taken him to above 2.5, and he missed the free throw and never came back in the game. So not a great start for me.
Those are my favorites, where you're like, oh, wow, Keegan Murray goes out of the game. I wonder if he's going to come back, because if he doesn't come back, they will take him off the board. He might come back. He's cleared to come back to the game, but he may or may not come back into the game. You're like, oh man, that's not great. That's not great for anyone out there.
It's my first and last on a Kings game that I'm at. I can't do it. I can't do it personally.
Sean's like, nope, I'm not doing it.
Well, I wouldn't. It's not that I look. I like PrizePicks a lot. I would do it. I wouldn't do it at the game I'm covering.
Okay.
Huge distinction there. So, yeah. And to me, it's not. I make my picks. It's not something I'd be pining over, because I don't think you're doing yourself any favors by doing that. But make your picks. Check it at the end of the night. I bet if you keep a blind eye to it, and you'll be pleasantly surprised at the end of the night.
All right. Probably not, because
that's my strategy.
I'm really bad at it.
Yeah, well, I'm seeing you go through it, so it is fun. That's the funny thing.
Having a good time with it.
It's like, this guy must enjoy getting kicked in the gut or lower because it's a lot of fun, but he hasn't had success yet.
No, I think the only thing that I will stick with, if I am going to do any Kings related, is Kevin Huerter with the points and rebounds combination and Malik Monk on assists. Like for some reason, those are two stats that are always lower than they probably should be. And so I do more and I come up wins. So anyway, you can jump in the description down below. There's a link to PrizePicks through the Kings Beat. It's also in the Kings Beat newsletter. But play responsibly, have fun. We just, again, I just do it as an added element to what I'm doing. And I think it's a lot of fun. Let's get to this Keegan Murray thing. I got to be honest. Like, watching Keegan Murray in college, I thought, okay, he can be a league average defender, right? Like, I don't think he'll be great. I don't think he'll be bad. I was very clear during the draft process that, like, there are a couple of things that I don't think will translate well for Keegan. Number one, I think he can be a decent rebounder, but I don't think he'll average 8.5 or whatever it was that he did at Iowa. And then the other thing that I didn't think would translate would be like the shot blocking, which it hasn't. He averaged like 1.8 blocks per game in college. It's just really tough to get weak side shot blocks as a guy who's 6'8" at the NBA level. But all of a sudden, we're seeing this kid like take this leap on the defensive end. And I think it kind of, like, in a way, it changes everything. Like the trajectory of Keegan Murray, if he's a 22 point per game scorer, it changes who the Kings are moving forward. That means they've got a legitimate big three. But if he's all of a sudden even an 18 point game per game guy, and you add that he might be a plus defender that can do multi-positional defending, I really do think that it makes the Kings a much, like, it increases their ceiling going forward. It started with I thought he was good in the OKC game, but really to me it started with the Donovan Mitchell game. Just where were you guys at? We'll start with Brenden. This You got a 6'8" guy running around defending a 6'1" guard and somehow staying in front of him and making an impact on the defensive end.
I think there's been like some signs here and there that make you wonder throughout his career. Like, I think game 3 or 4 of his rookie season, they were against the Clippers and he was assigned to Paul George and did a pretty good job late in that game. Or you go back to the Warriors game this year, they end up putting him on Steph Curry. And then the two most recent definitely stand out. Like, to be able to put him on Donovan Mitchell, like you're talking about, or on Steph Curry, and him being able to work through screens, I think is one of the biggest parts, really getting his shoulder around screens, being able to stay with guys. He obviously has good length and he's moving his feet great. He's just so engaged. Like last night, LeBron comes across half court and he's sitting there waiting at half court, low in a defensive stance, hands out, super active. I think that he's been doing a great job. He's exerting all that effort on that end of the floor. And it's definitely paying off. The YouTube side will know why I hesitated.
Coughed off the best of Sean right there.
But it's been amazing, man. The versatility that exists for it to be Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, and then also that translate to LeBron James has been so valuable for this Kings team, and genuinely does sort of change the conversation around what Keegan's ceiling could be. And it's a short sample, but these 3 games, it's 2 games. It's been really different. I don't feel like we've seen anything close to this from Keegan.
Yeah, and to me, this season it really began with the Steph Curry game in Golden State. Now, granted, you're seeing guys like Curry, SGA, even Donovan Mitchell. I mean, they're still getting theirs. Let's not make it sound like he's shutting them down like Kobe stopped Ruben Patterson or something like that. Even though I bring that up because Ruben Patterson never really stopped Kobe, but he's showing. I think where it's really impactful is the team defense because Mike Brown started with the zone. And I think he doesn't want to play his own, but it kind of comes from there a little bit. Them tinkering with some things to try to cut down the fouling, obviously increase defensive productivity. And
the easiest way to cut down fouling: don't put Chris Duarte
don't foul.
Don't put Chris Duarte on the court.
Don't reach.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, and you can see these guys, like, they're really. I mean, the verticality, the hands up in the air. You can tell that this has been points of emphasis, and they right now kind of look like one of those try hard varsity teams that are just really focusing in on one thing, and it's working. I want to see 10 games from now. You got some scouting reports out there. You got a lot of scouts at games, by the way, right now, and see how teams adjust to it and what they do. But yeah, so far so good. And I think I don't think it's going anywhere. I think even with the scouting, I think Keegan is going to have that kind of expectation, and really, I'll give him another tip of the cap too. I think, his rebounding has been something that he's really focusing on as well. So Keegan is a very polarizing player for this team and this team's success going forward. And we all talk about, can he make that big leap? And, my whole thing was replicating last year and giving him a little bit of breathing room to stretch his legs a little bit and kind of develop as a player. And if he takes that big leap next year, I think that goes a long way. But shoot, if he can do it this year and accelerate that process, that will help immensely with this team.
And I honestly think a large majority of the team has taken a leap defensively. Like De'Aaron has been super aggressive in the games that we've seen him. Domas's verticality, I think, has been great. He hasn't been in foul trouble all too often. Coaches really, really talked about his verticality. We saw Malik stand in there and take a charge, even if it did get overruled, like just rotating to be in position to do it.
That was weird.
Yeah, how it just like became a no call.
Yeah, it's like it's either going to be a block or a charge, like Rex Chapman, and it was neither.
Right.
It was
like,
neither.
Nope. It was, we just inadvertent whistle after review. What, I guess, I don't know. Let's just side out. Let's go.
Yeah.
Very strange.
That was weird. So yeah, just to like right now, Keegan's averaging 14.4 points, 6.8 rebounds, 1.9 assists. He's 1.5 steals per game and 0.7 blocks. The other thing I'd point out is he's averaging 14.4, but he's shooting 38.7 from the field and 29.6 from three. When those numbers get to his standard numbers, he won't have to do anything other than just shoot his standard averages, and he'll be at either 17 or 18 a game. Like, we're going to see him take this statistical leap right here, and it won't even be because he's doing anything different except for hitting shots. And I think we're slowly starting to see him hit shots. I'd say the one thing that was really interesting to me was when he said in our media post game that he's just more athletic than he was last year. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like, typically you don't hear a player say he's more athletic, but it kind of goes back to like what I've heard with the team where they all think that both of the Murrays, like, they have young bodies, they were late bloomers, and that they could morph their bodies, as a training staff. You really could put like an emphasis on either bulking up or on making them more athletic, or changing their ability, like flexibility and everything else. And so I think it's interesting because he does look more athletic. Like, I remember in the playoffs, like Steph Curry just ran by him every time and went right to the rack. And Keegan Murray could never get there for the block and also couldn't stay in front of him. It just doesn't feel like that's the same right now. So I think it's pretty strong to see. I don't know, like, if he's going to be a lockdown defender every single night, or if he's going to be able to do, continue on this path. But if he can play the three, and I mean, if he can guard Donovan Mitchell, excuse me, if he can guard Donovan, then he can play the three, and he's not just a four. And then that adds a whole nother thing to the Kings, like the versatility of roster construction moving forward. If you have a three or a four in him, and you can go chase a stretch four or stretch five and start moving pieces around, it really does help you. Let's get.
I think real quick, I think a lot of this comes from, you're like, oh, if you can guard Donovan Mitchell, you could do X, Y, and Z. It's like, I think a lot of this comes from, if I can guard De'Aaron Fox, I can do X, Y, and Z. And they spent so much time playing one-on-ones this offseason, and I think that did so much for Keegan. De'Aaron talked about how he thinks Keegan is just moving better than he did last year. Coach mentioned them playing ones a lot. Like, him getting a lot of reps of guarding what is widely viewed as the fastest player in the league with the ball probably helped a lot.
I totally agree. I think that's a really good point. Brendan, let's go to the next topic here. Keegan Murray is coming around, right? Offensively, he's had better games. It hasn't been like this straight, all of a sudden he went from like, oh, I can't hit anything, to I'm great again. He did have a couple of really, really solid games, but then some sort of hit and miss here and there. Even like the Lakers game, I think he finished with 9 points on 3 of 9 shooting. The guy who hasn't missed is Kevin Huerter. And watching him all of a sudden become like the dude is really wild to watch. Like, he started the first 5 games of the season, he was I think he was 5 of 25 from 3. He was shooting 20%. And here we are at game 10, and he's already he's at like 39% from 3. He's totally found himself. And not only that, but he's given the Kings like a third option that I didn't think that they would have in him. I guess we'll start with you, Sean. Just what have your impressions been of Kevin? And I think it started in the second Houston game where he was the one guy who had energy with the starters, but then it carried over to Portland, it carried over to OKC, it carried over to Cleveland, and then of course we have the 28-point game against the Lakers too.
Yeah, it just gets in the right headspace. Get a couple to go down, and you kind of start to go, okay, I'm back to normal. I mean, people remember how Kevin Huerter started last year and then ended last year was not good. So it's just the life and times of a shooter in this league. And when it's going down, when it's going down, things are great. And when you're missing, it can really disrupt your confidence as a player. But shooters are going to continue to shoot. And right now he's on a heater. And I think it bodes well for Sacramento because all these guys that have experienced shooting woes along the way have kind of gotten right at the same time. There's probably some like, I don't know if it's magic or chemistry or whatever it is that there's something that goes with that when things are flowing and when the shots are falling, they're a fun team to watch. I mean, especially when the ball is zipping around the way they do and they play a certain brand of basketball, and it culminates into what you saw last night against the Lakers team that was frankly running in mud. They don't shoot very well, and they're on the second night of a back-to-back. And they also have a bunch of guys that they don't have a very creative offense either. So I think watching the Kings, that came at a really good time for them because they're able to go in there and kind of continue what they've been doing. And it's fun to watch Kevin because through this whole process of him really kind of trying to figure it out, going from that Houston game to a Portland overtime win against a really depleted team to a physical win against OKC to an even other physical brand of basketball with the Cavs, you see this progression from them. And each game has been this like building you to where you are now in this stretch. And especially with Fox back, I think Fox certainly helps Kevin Huerter, but it happened before that. To see that 2-man game again with Domas was so huge. So they're all kind of going through things and finding the rhythm, and it's just interesting because like there's going to be obviously all year there's going to be so much of a focus of last season, and we are at 10 games now, and you have a 6-4 record. Well, this time last year they were 4-6. They didn't have any injuries. People were still feeling pretty good about themselves. So knowing what they've already gone through so far this season, dealing with injuries, dealing with, kind of trying to knock off some of the rust, if you will, and trying to get back to what you were looking like offensively last year, all the while with a focus on defense and physicality, to know that you're 2 games better in the win column through 10 games than you were last season, it's got to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Brenden, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Sean nailed it with the Kevin conversation that like this is just life as a shooter in the league. And the same way that he said, I think De'Aaron has helped Kevin. I think Kevin has helped De'Aaron and Domas. Like that spacing is so important to this team. Kevin's pace is phenomenal. I like, especially open court's great. And I think a lot of players are great in the open court with their pace. His half court pace, like I will continue saying this, he is sprinting through every action all the time, every single possession. And he's usually chasing a guy on the other end that is also running through screens. Like the conditioning, if you just watch Kevin Huerter, he's running his ass off every single game. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that and stopping on a dime and taking pull-up jumpers when you've been sprinting as much as he has. So, these first 5 games, 6.8 points, 5.4 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 28.9% from the field, 20% from 3. Most recent 5 games, 21.2 points, 4.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 55% from the field, 48.9% from 3. They're definitely going down. It's helping the Kings. The ones after offensive rebounds, which is something the Kings have gotten really good at throughout the course of this year. Coach Brown credited Jay Triano for emphasizing that. It unlocks so much for this offense, and they've looked like themselves offensively and made progress defensively.
Yeah, I enjoyed in the Lakers game, he just like kept shooting. And then he had the heat check, which was like ridiculous, and he missed. And I think he even airballed it, right? Or it was really close to an airball. He walked over, they called a timeout. He walks over to the bench, and not only was he exhausted, but his face was red because he was blushing. I thought it was like a really funny moment because it was like, oh yeah, I just did that. I probably shouldn't have done that. Um, like watching him like pull out of the slump has been pretty cool to see, especially for a guy who, I think he got knocked off kilter in training camp. Like I think he had done his work. We're seeing that he's in better shape. That's why, Brennan, you talk about the speed and like how he just doesn't stop running. He's in better shape than he was last year. I think you can already see that. But on top of it, I think that the discussion about Chris Duarte, it came out of left field. Like Duarte starting over him, and it really like knocked him off his game. And I think that he probably, even before we knew it, there was already some murmurs behind the scenes, and he had already started to show signs of being like a little off. And, that happens. So I think I don't want to give Mike credit, a bunch of credit, Mike Brown a bunch of credit for getting him out of a slump, because I think part of the reason he was in a slump was Mike Brown. But I also think that that's coaching. And I think at some point that Kevin Huerter could look back at this particular situation and feel like he got better, whether it's on the offensive end or on the defensive end. I think he is a better defensive player today than he was, a month ago. And I think that at the end is all Mike Brown was trying to do. And it just kind of got there in a strange way. All
Well,
right.
make no
So,
mistake, though. I mean, if he goes into another funk over, let's say a
yeah.
5-game period, you're going to see more Chris Duarte, or you're going to see more Davion Mitchell. You're going to see more. I mean, it depends on who's playing well at the time, but Keon Ellis, that's part of having depth, and that's how Mike is looking at this team and saying, if someone ain't got it, we don't have time for them to figure it out.
Yeah.
You
It's the next man up.
figure it out, right? So it's next man up mentality, and they'll roll with whoever's playing well.
Okay, you are listening to the King's Beat. If you don't mind, give us a thumbs up if you're still watching here on YouTube. Give us a rating review wherever you're watching or listening to your podcast. That helps us. Let's get to the other guy.
Who's that?
Is it just me, or is De'Aaron Fox becoming a superstar like in front of our eyes? Like, I don't know if he can become a superstar because he plays in Sacramento, and no one outside of Sacramento is ever going to go, oh, that kid's a superstar. But
If you're that good,
I think he's becoming that good, and I think it's pretty crazy to watch somebody who, again, like has a pretty substantial ankle sprain, and then comes back and like instantly he's averaging 29 points a game again, but not only 29 points, but like 1.8 steals per game. Like he's doing all of this crazy defensive stuff, which we aren't used to seeing him do. He's just so much better than he was before. And I think he's going to start getting more and more notoriety, especially with, number one, the Kings being on national TV last night and everyone getting to see him, perform that way on national TV. But then him getting a shoe deal and him being like the second face of Under Armour with Steph Curry. So I think we're starting to see the momentum build for him to get more notoriety. But Sean, we'll start with you. Like, just what have you seen from him? Whether it's like the jumper following or him talking flat out talking shit to Lakers fans in the crowd last night. Like, there's just, it looks like De'Aaron Fox is a little bit different and like ready to say, hey man, I'm him.
Well, I push back a little on that, only because it's nice. You're right. He's learning to keep his foot on the gas, right? He's doing it on both sides of the floor. Having, it goes back to the trade, man. Having Domas around him has really opened him up and become this guy that doesn't have the pressure on him that he once did, and play and play a certain style of basketball that suits him. And there's a lot of things that happen at the right time for him. If you want to call it, blossoming into a superstar, that's fine. De'Aaron's always been that dude that's going to be chirping. He walks over to JB Bickerstaff earlier in the game, and they're having a conversation. And obviously he's called out flops when he sees it in a very funny animated way when he does. But he's always been a guy that's been a little sarcastic little prick out there, and I love it. I mean, that's the type of stuff. He and I share the same birthday, so I think there's a
stop it.
You can be a dick, you can be an asshole out there, and you can be fine with that. I embrace that, and he's always had that sarcastic kind of style to him, which is great. And he's been, some people called that arrogant and cockiness when he came into the league. I didn't. I mean, it's all in fun. He's having fun out there. And when it kind of coincides with, oh my God, look what I'm able to do with the basketball in my hands and being able to score and blossom into, what he has ultimately envisioned for himself, and then do it as a two-way player. It's a lot of fun to watch. To me, it's really speaks more to him stepping into his prime, stepping into becoming this best player on the team and being that focal piece, but seeing him not just do it in the fourth quarter. I mean, he's blowing by guys. You go back to that Laker game, look at how many blow-bys he has against some Laker defenders, especially in the open court. People have a fear of seeing LeBron James in the open court because he's so damn big and he's a freight train. But De'Aaron Fox might even be scarier because you blink and he's gone. I mean, that speed is so incredible. And knowing that you have to not only respect that, but the rest of his team is running there right with him. It's not like him as a rookie where he jumps out there and has to be the good teammate, wait for his team to catch up. They're all up there with him, even on the fast break. So it's a lot of fun to see. I don't know if it's him becoming a superstar, but they may not need him becoming a superstar. Do this. This is fantastic for Sacramento. It's fantastic for the Kings. Seeing him be a defender is remarkable, and just really everyone knows he's capable of it. It's just keeping the foot on the gas. So what's this look like in December and January? And that was what we saw last year. He kept his foot on the gas. There wasn't really a huge let up. And if the scoring numbers continue the way they are, yeah, you'll talk about him in that kind of realm with the upper echelon stars in this league.
Yeah, I do think it's been different. The shit talking has always been there, and I've loved it as well. Like, especially on fouls. Somebody fouls him and tries to complain. I guarantee De'Aaron is going to tell them, bro, look, there's a mark on my arm. You just fouled me, or whatever it is. He makes a nice bucket, is on a run. He'll do a little skip down the court because he's feeling himself. He's always been that guy. But I think there's been three differences so far this year. I think the defense that Sean talked about has been night and day. Like, we've seen moments of it throughout his career, but I think it's been consistent every minute that he's out there. He's hounding guys at the point of the attack. He's super aggressive and active with his hands. I think the consistency that Sean mentioned too, like, so often it was waiting for the fourth quarter, or maybe not waiting, but slowly ramping up and feeling out the game and coverages and letting his other teammates get a rhythm, because not everybody can turn it on the way he can. But I think we've seen it very consistently throughout all his minutes this year, even in the first half. Like, he's dropped 37 and 39. He had 37 plus on 5 occasions last year, and he's already at that point. So that, and then I think the 3-point shot, that he's taken 7.8 so far this year. The volume has really been there. And there's been times in previous seasons where he shoots a lot at the beginning of the year and slows down. So I'm interested to track that, see how that, alters as the year goes on. But 7.8 a game on just under 36% is pretty solid when he's getting up 5 a game last year. And not very often I feel like he's chucking shots. He had a huge 3, I think, right before half last game. And like, his shot looks so confident this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also add, like, if he's going to be a guy who takes those extra threes per game. So last year he was at 5. This year he's at 7.8. Like Brenden said, I don't expect him to stay at 7.8. I would think he's probably going to drop back to somewhere around 7, right? But if he's averaging 2 more 3-point attempts, and then the other stat that's jumped up is he's back up to 7 free throw attempts per game. Like in 2020-21, he was at 7.2, but then he dropped down to 5.9 and 6. If he can stay around 7 there and stay around 7 3-pointer attempts per game, he's going to average between like 28 and 30 a game. And right now he's tied for 5th in the NBA in scoring if he had enough games played. He's tied with Jokic for 5th in scoring at 30 points per game. It's pretty impressive. And I dig everything he's like. His personality's always been a lot of fun, like both off the court and like watching him be like cocky and little, like what you said, Sean. He's a prick.
If
when
you
he's
could
on the
see
court.
if you can, I know I'm kind of promoting my former station, but I did a feature on him at a basketball camp. He did it with his mother, who's a breast cancer survivor, Lorraine. And did a basketball camp, and he's got all these kids in there. And I've got him mic'd up, and he's like literally talking shit with kids. It's amazing. And it's not like it's done in a negative way. I don't want anyone to think he's a bully, but he's holding his own. Like these kids are he's talking about like math and how he was really good at math. And he starts testing kids and their knowledge of math and, how to find it's hilarious. If you get a chance, it's probably on YouTube somewhere, but it's mic'd up and he's, you can see him just talking. And ironically, for a guy who signed with Steph Curry, it's the same moment where he's like, he's got all these kids and he's going to pick guys to come up, all these kids to come up and participate with him. And they're all, raising their hands and everything. And one kid wore Curry's to his camp. And he's like, I'm not picking you. You're wearing Curry's. And he's giving him shit about it the entire time. And then at one point, the kid just chucks the shoes off of his feet and still raises his hand. I mean, it's just some of the funniest stuff to see. But that's even in a manner like that, where it's on the basketball court. He's a competitive guy. Obviously, he's a gamer and he plays video games and he wears a headset. And there's just a whole bunch of shit talk that goes on there. Plus, you've seen his social media activity. Lots of shit talk there. So, yeah. He can hang.
Yeah, he's fun. And I do think that we're seeing like the beginnings of him getting the notoriety. Last year he finished he's third team all NBA, but he actually came in 11th place in the voting and Sabonis was 12th, if I'm not mistaken. So they barely missed like second team all NBA. And that's a big deal. Like he's right there on the cusp. I'm not saying he might be a top 10 NBA player, and by the end of this season, he might be able to cement himself as maybe a little higher than that. And so, if you're going to walk away and your team goes 2-3 with you gone, and then you step back on the court, and all of a sudden your team's just like unstoppable again, that probably means you're a really good player. So,
and it probably means that your team is really damn good too. Like everybody's so focused on getting a third guy. That's how the Kings take a next step. Like if De'Aaron takes another jump into the caliber that we're talking about, he potentially could. Like that's another jump for the team as a whole.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. Let's talk about I don't know why he calls it a pink elephant in the room, just the elephant in the room, but the elephant and the pink elephant in the room.
If it was pink, you're going to look at it even more crazy.
Yeah, I guess so. The pink elephant in the room, we're using a Mike Brown term here. The Davion Mitchell situation has gone weird. And I don't know where it's going to end up, but I don't think it's anywhere good. Davion has had 2 straight DNP CDs, did not play coach's decisions. He's healthy. He's on the sidelines. Keon Ellis is playing in front of him. And not only is Keon Ellis playing in front of him, but you could see a world in which Colby Jones might get a shot at doing this as well. Colby goes down to the G League and does something crazy like 16 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, and 8 steals. And they blow a team out. And you could see where he might get some sort of opportunity at some time. But where are we at with Davion Mitchell, and how does this thing work out? Are we seeing the end of Davion Mitchell's run in Sacramento, or is this just a hiccup where Mike Brown's trying something different and looking for energy from someone else, and Keon Ellis raised his hand and said, I'm the dude?
Well, go ahead, Brenden.
Like Davion's gonna play again. It's like at some point here, Keon is going to have a little bit of a tough stretch. It could be 2 straight possessions where coach doesn't like what Keon says. And I would bet that coach will very quickly go back to Davion. And when Davion comes back in the game, he's going to have something to prove. And I bet you he's going to play his ass off and probably play pretty well. Like there's a chance he does too much, maybe, when trying to prove something. But I think Davion's going to get his chance to come back around. I think Keon's been playing well. And really the difference has been the offense, right? Like if you look at the starting lineup with the 3 different point guards out there, with De'Aaron, obviously the best, right? 126 offensive rating, 105 defensive, 20.9 net rating. You go to Keon, 108.5 offensive rating, 98.6 defensive, plus 9.8 net rating. Davion's number is the number with him in that lineup Again, same other 4 guys around him. 92 offensive rating, 108 defensive, minus 16.7. He's the only guy negative in that net rating. Like, the lineup just has not looked the same offensively with him out there. The pace doesn't look great. I think there's an aspect of making that entry pass to the big man is a little bit more difficult and complicated for Davion, just because he doesn't have that same size. So, I do think that there have been some offensive things with Davion that need to get figured out, but I would definitely bet that at some point Keon is not going to have a great stretch, just the nature of it, and Davion's going to go back out there with something to prove.
I would
not much
argue
Go ahead.
that Keon hasn't even had a good stretch, that he's just brought energy and he's played with pace. It's not like he's just killing it.
No, he
He-
is. That's exactly what's asked of him. That he's doing exactly what he needs to do.
Yes.
That he's out there, that he is doing what Mike Brown wants from that position. He's playing defense. He's getting in passing lanes. He's getting deflections. He doesn't care about his scoring. He doesn't care about his shooting. He cares about pace, defense, energy, play like you've got some life. Don't slow it down. And Davion slowed it down. And it was not a good fit at times with some of the other 4 players on the court, as Brenden laid out there, but it's not a permanent thing. And Davion, of all people, knows this. He's not over there sulking. He's waiting for the opportunity again. He knows what Mike Brown was looking to do. I think Davion came into this season looking like, hey, I got to score the ball. I got to shoot better. I got to be able to stay on this court. And it's taken away from some of the focus of, no, you just need to run this offense. You need to push the pace, which I thought he did very well in preseason. And you need to defend at a high level. And his on-ball defense has been pretty good. The rest of the stuff is, it can be mismanaged at times. Without having Fox, I think has hurt him, because I think they wanted to have him and Fox play together at certain times of the season. But what Keon Ellis has done, to me, has been exceptional. He's done everything that they've wanted him to do. And I think, he's not a shooter, right? He's not this guy that's going to go out there and be a shooter, but he's been able to impact and muck up the game and help that physicality and do everything that they're looking to do. And they've won. Let's face it, since they've gone to him, they haven't lost. So how's Mike Brown supposed to pull him out of the rotation again? I was asked earlier in the week in a radio thing about, what does this do for Davion? To me, I didn't think it was going to necessarily impact him as much as it was Chris Duarte, because of how much he's fouled and how much and what that's looked like. But even Chris Duarte, who doesn't need to go out there and score, he's out there for one specific reason, and he's out there to disrupt the game. Even when he's fouling, is disrupting the game. And Mike has talked about that. Like, I'm with you, James, too. You can't be putting the team at the free throw line 5 fouls with,
He's
6
averaging
minutes to go in the quarter.
7.9 fouls per 36.
It's brutal. It's brutal. But at the same token, he's one of the few guys on the team that's willing to put his nose into it and go through the muck. And Mike's going to give that probably a 5-game stint to look at how that really impacts play and get some real numbers behind it and whatever. But we haven't seen the last of Davion Mitchell. This is what Mike Brown does. This is coaching. This is rotating guys in and out. And you're going to go with the hot hand. And how is he supposed to go away from Keon Ellis at this point when they're continuing to win? And I know there's some people are like, well, he should have come in at garbage time. Mike Brown has too much respect for Davion Mitchell and where he's at in his career to put him in the last 13 seconds of a game. That's reserved for your 2-ways and so your fringe lineup people. Davion Mitchell's not a fringe lineup guy. And hopefully Keon Ellis isn't either, after what he's been able to show over the past week or two.
Yeah, okay, so I don't think Keon Ellis has, I think he has done what they're asking. He's bringing energy. He's all over the court. He's made a lot of mistakes. You've seen, Domantas Sabonis has yelled at him 5 times. And it's like, hey, man, you have got to do this, this, and this. But I think the problem that Davion has is, number one, he came out and he played, he kind of got told that, look, you're going to lose your spot here. They had the OKC, the Houston games where, it was just a mess. He was not good in either one of those games. The second Houston Rockets game, he ran a -30 for the game. But then he came out in the Portland game, and I thought he was so good. He's 6-9 from the field, 3-4 from 3. He's got 4 assists. He's playing defense. He ends up with 4 fouls because he was playing defense, 16 points. He looks so solid. He comes out the next game, and it's just flat again. It's like, did you not get the memo? We sent the memo to everyone that we run, and we're a pace team, and Like Davion, there was a game where they dropped down to an 89 pace. This team, like, it was 104 pace with De'Aaron Fox in the first 3 games, and they dropped to a 95 pace in the 5 games he was out. Like, that's unacceptable. And so, like, look, I don't know if he's going to get a whole bunch of other opportunities or not, because the one thing I will point out is that Mike Brown loves multi-positional players. And you look all around this team, Kevin Huerter plays the 2 and the 3. De'Aaron Fox plays the 1 and the 2. Malik Monk plays the 1 and the 2. Domantas Sabonis can play the 4 and the 5. Keegan Murray's the 3 and the 4. Harrison Barnes the 3 and the 4. Like, all of these guys are, even Chris Huerter can play 1 through 3. Like, they have a bunch of multi-positional players. The only 2 guys that really stand out that are not multi-positional players at all, well, maybe there's 3, is Davion, and it's because he's a 6 foot tall guard. And then it's the 2 centers, and Alex Len and JaVale McGee, which you can't, like, put them next to each other and do, like, a crazy wild twin towers. So, like, I think Mike Brown needs to search for players, and I keep bringing this name up, but, like, I think what he wants is, like, Gary Payton II, or he wants a Bruce Brown type player, and that's not who Davion is. But that might be who Keon Ellis can be for this team, and it might be who Colby Jones can be for this team. And so I think it puts Davion in a pretty awkward situation, because Malik Monk is a backup point guard. He just doesn't, like, he might not bring the ball up all the time, but what you're really looking for is that partner that's big enough to play with Malik and to help support Malik on the defensive end. Maybe has some versatility. They can play the 2, the 1, the 2, the 3. And that's just not who Davion is. And so it's tough to run a second unit with a guy who's 6 foot tall and a guy who's 6'3" and maybe 6'3". I mean, I think Monk's more like 6'2" with spiky hair and maybe 170 pounds. Like, that's not a real big second unit as far as your guards. So anyway, I don't know what it means for him long term. I think it's a good question, though, and I'm not convinced that. I mean, he could just start playing again tomorrow, right? Or he could not play for a week or 2, and then things get really kind of quiet and awkward. I wish the best for him, because I know he's a hard worker. I know he wants to be good. It's just, for whatever reason, he's not being able to translate what the Kings want out of him onto the court. Um, I I was going to touch on that. You know what? I'm going to throw that into a different section. You're listening to the Kings Beat. Thanks for tuning in. If you're still listening and still watching, give us a thumbs up, give us a rating and review, all that good stuff. But let's get to the business of basketball. I think there's this question that I have. Like, the Kings Fox is back and everything's great, right? And they're launching off, and they're all of a sudden they're 6-4, and they're top of the Pacific Division again, and they're starting to climb Western Conference standings. And we got all these in-season tournament games and all this stuff starting to show up. And, like, but my question is, did the De'Aaron Fox absence, is it sort of a warning sign for this team that like, they have to figure out how to play without him as well as with him, but, like, that if he is going to be gone for any prolonged period, that they need to figure out how to be better, and they need to figure out how to not have the whole thing come to a crashing halt anytime he misses a game. And is there maybe even, like, it shines a light on something that this team is missing and you need to go get, whether it's via trade or next offseason, where you can try to supplement what happens when Fox goes off the court.
I think you can survive without Fox better than what they did. And I don't think that the backup to your star is necessarily where you're going out and spending assets. Like, maybe eventually you figure something small out in free agency or in the draft for an eventual replacement. But, like, to be blunt, I think the team's, like, pretty screwed if De'Aaron goes down for a long time. And the same thing with Domas. Like, they rely on their stars, and can they keep their head above water? Maybe. Like, I think that they have encouraging depth that could potentially, step up in certain moments. And, somebody has to go on Kevin goes on his streak when De'Aaron's not out there. And I don't know that would necessarily be the case, but say he does, like, that makes those games so much easier. And you have different guys that can step up here and there. And again, keep your head above water. But, like, this team is De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis.
I don't disagree. I don't
No,
know. Sean,
not at
what
all.
do you got?
I don't know if it makes you analyze too much. I think to me, and we talked about it, the most alarming thing is not looking like yourself, not looking like we saw glimpses last year where he wasn't playing and you didn't look the same, but you didn't lose your whole identity. You were
Yeah.
still trying to play the right way and pace and all that kind of stuff. So um, to see them go completely the other way was alarming, but you hope that it's some sort of a anomaly, and you hope you don't. I mean, in a perfect world, you hope you don't see it, but I do believe Mike when he says, "Oh, good, we're early in the season, we're facing adversity. How do we handle it?" And the thing I like to kind of point out where you still won 6 of 10 at the end of the day, but you had a 3-game losing streak and you had lost 4 or 5 at one point in that stretch, and that was moments without De'Aaron Fox largely. And I think to me, what stood out was it wasn't look. It's normal for fans and media to freak out a little bit and have so much weight on each game and go through the roller coaster of, oh, this means that and this means that and that means that and that means that, wins and losses and just hanging on every game. But it was another thing to see the team kind of go through it themselves as well, like, having tough conversations, as Domantas Sabonis called it. It's not just the fans and the media that go through this. The players themselves and the coaching staffs themselves, they were going through it as well. Um,
It felt
all
like
the
there was a
while
little doubt.
saying,
It
yeah,
felt like there was a
all,
little doubt. Yeah.
but to that point where it's like you don't hang your hat on, well, it's early, which it is. It's incredibly early, because these are the games that you have to hopefully take advantage of early on, if to replicate what you did last year, and be that type of team. And you hope you've shown growth, but at the same time, like, training camps aren't what they used to be. You don't really have that ramp up period, but you've had largely a month and a half, 2 months where your team has been around each other already for a significant portion of time, and you're trying to get back to a play to where you were, all the while working on some things. But to me, that was the more interesting thing, was that I don't think the Kings showed the poise to just brush it off and say, um, this is an anomaly. We'll wait for Fox, or we're not this. They had a knee jerk reaction themselves and saying, hey, this is unacceptable. We need to change some things up already. We need to get back to doing this. There were internal conversations and it wasn't good enough. And to me, that's actually a good and a bad, right? Like, it's good in the sense that you're addressing it and it worked out. And here you are, a few games later in the midst of a 4-game win streak. And we saw what it looked like. You went through moments where you didn't look like yourselves. So you shouldn't have had to really have those moments. But another thing, it was just like, are you that fragile? Like, can you, maybe I'm doing a poor way of articulating this, but like, being able to realize that largely, no, this isn't us, we'll be just fine, and continue business as normal. And they didn't do that. And I think most people would see that and say, that's fine. We'd rather see them kind of tinker things through and work things through. But it just shows, in my eyes, in my mind, a little bit of a delicacy, how delicate things can be, where if things are going poorly, how quickly they will try to do anything different. Rotational things, taking Davion Mitchell out of the rotation, bumping a guy like Keegan Murray or Keon Ellis up, seeing a game where Domas only takes 4 shots, like these just weird things that happen. And then they're, hyper focused on other things, as opposed to a good team like in the early 2000s where Rick Adelman was like, I don't care what stretch we're going through. These are my 8 players that I'm going to play. I'm not going to go really farther than that unless it's like back-to-backs and schedule things. And this is who we are night in, night out. And we just let the chips fall where they may. I think a lot of old school coaches would want to be that way, be that type of team that has the same old every single game. I think Mike Brown would like that himself, but he realizes that's not the case anymore in the NBA. That this league is way different than what it was previously. Even though, I mean, he said it preseason, even though he'd like to have 8 guys he can rely on and not go too deep into the bench, I think you have to at this point in this day and age. So it's just interesting to see how they navigate through things.
I would also add too that if De'Aaron Fox got hurt in like game 25 and missed games 26 through 30, this would have been a lot different. Like the Kings would have had an identity on the court already for this season. They would have
Yeah.
already worked through some of the difficulties that they were having with their offense. They would have worked through some of the kinks that happened. They would have started to build a little bit on defense, build some chemistry, all that stuff. It would have been easier to see it happen then. Because then, like again, you can have a next man up mentality when the system is strong enough to support it. I think it was a new system. It happened, after game 3 that he went out. He missed game 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right.
8.
But the fact that it happened so early, they hadn't established who they were. They hadn't established all the pecking orders. Trey Lyles misses time as well, which changes a lot of things. People would like it does. And like I still think that like once Trey Lyles is back, that might mean less JaVale. It might be less Alex Lynn. It might mean less Sasha Vezenkov. It could also, if Keegan Murray's out there playing the 3, it could mean a lot less Chris Duarte or no Chris Duarte. Like this, Mike's got a lot of decisions still to make. And again, it's a long NBA season, but I just point out that they hadn't had time to establish who they were before when he got hurt. And so again, if this happens game 50, it's just not the same as it was in the first 2 weeks of the season. Okay, so we're just about done here. Do the Kings need to make a deal here? Should they be looking around?
I mean, they should be looking, but I don't think it's a
stupid
rush.
question.
I don't
If
think
Alex
it's a rush.
Caruso becomes available, should they jump all over that?
I like Caruso. I like OG. I like those guys. I just think that we have time.
Okay.
A 6'5" defender like Caruso, that's interesting. What are you giving up?
Probably Davion.
Hold on a minute.
Davion in a couple seconds. Like Alex Caruso's.
You're
on the
Chicago.
contract.
You're Chicago. I'm Sacramento. Okay. Hey, I'll give you Davion.
Okay.
You're doing the deal as Chicago? No, you're hanging up the phone.
No, I don't know about that. Like if
Straight
they're
up?
if they're going to blow things
straight-
up. No. You'd have to give up like a second or two. I mean, but you're looking at a 24-year-old versus a 29-year-old, and if they're going to trade Zach LaVine, then they're probably going to open up and trade a few other guys.
Yeah, but they're not doing it for just Davion Mitchell.
Yeah, but I
think the same.
Like, I don't know.
You feel the same, right?
Yeah, it's probably more.
Yeah,
than that.
that's ridiculous.
But not much more. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? You're not talking about Davion in a first. Like, Alex Caruso's a nice player, but I mean, the dude averages like 8 points a game or 7 points a game for his career. I mean,
he was a second team all defensive team and he's 6'5". He's got great length.
for a couple of years
guard.
ago he was, but like again, injuries, everything else.
Yeah, but my point is you're going to get rid of that to get Davion, who's a defensive player who's significantly shorter.
I'm
Straight
not
up?
saying
No.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but I am saying like they're like
There is an aspect of like team control, like Caruso is this year, and then one more of partially guaranteed. Davion goes into restricted, not this year, but the next.
yeah.
So like you have Davion for longer. Chicago doesn't have a point guard solution. Like I think the conversation with Davion's interesting and specific because different teams could value him more, right? Like I think he's going to come up because other teams might value him more than Sacramento does.
Sure. No, I get that. But if you're Chicago and you've got Alex Caruso and you're dangling Davion Mitchell my way, I'm like, I've already got Davion Mitchell. He's just taller. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you're talking about a guy who's 5 years younger and better team
fine.
control
Yeah,
and cheaper,
fine.
a lot cheaper.
Alex Caruso's not that old.
Well, he's
he's got great
29. He's
size.
almost 30.
Yeah. And he's in the prime of his career.
I'm just saying, if they're gonna blow that thing up,
If they're blowing it
it's
up,
not about whether
I'm not saying that they're not going to trade Caruso. I think their bigger problem is what the hell do we do with Zach LaVine? What can we get with Zach LaVine?
Wait, Zach LaVine is the answer to everything that's wrong with the Los Angeles Lakers. Have you not been listening to TV all day? The Lakers, that's the answer to every single thing wrong with the Los Angeles Lakers.
He might help a lot.
They do need shooting and athleticism. And someone who can
he
run
would
the floor.
not help at all. Like, come on now.
No.
Come on,
Any from the area?
I'm
Went to
just
UCLA.
yeah,
well,
I'm
I get
just
that, but
saying.
is he from down there?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I'm just saying that that's not a horrible like if they're gonna start fielding offers for Alex Caruso, people aren't coming in hot on the Alex Caruso train. Again, like to compare him to someone that I always talk about,
Well,
like
he's also
he's
he's not part of he's not a problem like Levine is. Like
no,
he makes very manageable money. He's a good player. Get some better pieces around him, and you don't have to move Alex Caruso. Is my point.
yeah,
A
I
good
just
team
think
will offer something decent for Caruso.
Correct.
yeah, I just don't know what something decent is for Caruso and like
Oh,
how we're
Levine's
like
from
again,
Washington, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
I
what's
forgot
that?
about that. Levine's from Washington, by the way.
Oh,
Stat
got
alert.
it, got it. Yeah, I mean, like just looking at Alex Caruso's career path, it's not like we're not talking about like an A-list free agent here. Even if they kind of went at him like a B-list free agent. Anyway, figure I'd throw it out there. Like we can banter. I think he's gettable, and I don't know that it costs you a ton, especially if you can cut his salary in half and give him a couple of future assets.
I still think we're going to be talking about OG at the deadline expiring.
Oh, for sure.
Been part of the conversation before.
Siakam too.
Yep.
I think there's a
Yeah.
number of guys. The usual suspects are going to keep poking their head around, and their names are going to come up. And I think that it's when you say do they need to make a deal, it's like no, they don't need to make a deal. They just won 6 of 10. Calm down. Like no, they don't have to make a deal.
Well, no, but I think you should always be looking to improve your team.
Always, that's the thing. But you
Yeah.
have to have someone in mind. That's why. But like this, because fans do this a lot. It's like, oh, they got to make a trade. Okay, great. And they're just going Harrison Barnes. Get rid of him. Okay, great. What are you getting?
No.
And then
Yeah,
it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah. No, totally. Or they Harrison Barnes for something wacky. Yeah. I just think, I mean, Davion Mitchell was just the 9th pick in the draft like 2.5 years ago. Like
Well,
it's
and
not like
he's not in the rotation for 2 games, but it's an 82 game season
Mhm.
and more with the playoffs. Like again, you haven't seen the last of Davion Mitchell.
I don't think so either.
I don't.
And I
I don't
like
think-
Davion. I just don't
Well, yeah,
think
but
he
this
fits.
still, but like painting a picture of this, like, oh, it's all grim and dark around Davion Mitchell. Like, no, it's not. Davion Mitchell knows what's expected of him. He wasn't playing well. He realizes Keon Ellis did his job and is being rewarded for it, and they're winning. So, he has to wait for his opportunity again. He has to wait for his just like Keon Ellis did. And he'll have a longer leash than Keon Ellis does because Keon Ellis is a 2-way contract player. What would be interesting to see, and again, I think they have to cut somebody, but if they were able to convert Keon Ellis into a roster player, has he done enough to be able to do that at some point this year? You'd probably have to waive Petrusev.
There's an obvious cut. Yeah.
Petrusev.
Right.
Yep.
And then maybe, or even JaVale McGee or somebody like that. There's guys that you could.
Wow, Sean.
I know.
The change up is
in the event that
crazy.
you wanted to see somebody else.
Just like throw it out
Holy.
there, or they could just wave
Holy.
JaVale McGee.
No, I'm just hey, just saying. I'm not saying that they would do that, but I was like, if they wanted to really hold on to Philip, there are other candidates that they could cut.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kessler Edwards, they have other
Right.
guys on their roster that are on like minimum deals or final
And
year.
there's
of
not a
their
lot of
contract.
money. Yeah, the money is nothing at that point for.
Yeah, it's not. So, okay, well, I just figure I'd throw a haywire, like see what you guys thought. And
Sean loves it.
it was fun.
I just
No,
need
I think
more.
Alex Caruso
They
would
need to
make the
make a
Kings
deal.
better.
But James knows I'm going to react to something like that. If I'm like the bear that he's just poking. He goes, "I'll watch this."
Wait till it rains.
Yeah. Oh,
Dude, it's already raining. Have you looked outside?
On
This
and
is
off. Yeah,
Is it
bullshit.
raining today?
I mean, I know
On
we
and
need
off
it.
for
It's
me.
fine. Like I'm going to be out there at the Causeway Classic on Saturday. Hopefully, I don't want to be drenched, but it's probably going to be drenching me. I don't like it.
I should be out there. I don't know why I'm not, but I've never been to the Causeway
Yeah,
Classic.
you proud Davis Aggie, you.
I am a proud Davis
And
Aggie.
you're hosting. They're hosting the game. You could go that.
Yeah, I've never been. So, all right. Do we have any final thoughts? Like, I have some pretty heavy final thoughts here.
Are they going to
today.
depress us? Did someone die?
No,
what
I'm not
happened?
going to depress us.
Okay.
No, well, I mean, yeah, the Oakland A's franchise died. So, yeah. So
You go first then.
John Fisher can kiss my lily white ass. The same goes for Rob Manfred. This is like an embarrassment to professional sports. He is no better than the Maloofs and their raggedy ass ownership when they were here in Sacramento. And so my thought process for everyone out there, the Gap, Athleta, let's see, Banana Republic, Old Navy. Yeah, dead. Done to me. Like, that's who John Fisher is. That's where his money comes from. And if he builds clothing any way like he builds a baseball franchise, you probably shouldn't be supporting him. So that's what I would say. Like, down with Major League Baseball for screwing over a really, really tough fan base and like letting a team relocate to a building that is imaginary, that won't be built for 5 years, that has no chance to succeed. And they know that. And they just know that when he sells a team, they're going to get paid on the other end because they're putting that clause in. So good luck with that, Major League Baseball. I hope that John Fisher's businesses fail because he's bad people. There you go.
Lily White, huh?
Lily White. Yeah, that was
Lily White. Yeah, no, that's just
Sure.
I'm pasty, man.
so. What do you hold out hope on now?
Oh, I don't think there's. I mean, if there's any hope, it's that the school group will force the thing onto a
Schools
ballot.
over stadiums.
Yeah, schools over stadiums, where they have actually turned down funding for schools. If they can get this on a ballot, then the entire deal falls apart completely. And so they're pushing to get it on the ballot this coming year. And if it's going to be on the ballot, we would know long before that, and the whole deal would be over because he would lose his $400 million for going to Vegas, and he just doesn't have the money to do it. So sell the team to Joe Lacob, who wants to buy the team, who will step right in and build the stadium down wherever it needs to be built. Like, they've got both properties that they can still work with, but the Howard Terminal thing is just ridiculous. Like, he wanted a $12 billion deal in Oakland, and he's willing to settle for like a parking lot in Las Vegas. It's literally a parking lot that he won't get any development around it at all. It's already being developed. It's already casinos. Like, he's getting nothing other than the stadium. And I just don't think any Major League Baseball is not going to be the draw they think it is in Las Vegas. Like, people are not flying to Vegas to go watch baseball games. Especially, you might go see one, but you're not going to a 3-game series. It's not like it's the Raiders where you fly in to see a game and go home. So it's my point of view. I hate relocation.
Yeah.
You guys got any final thoughts?
Um,
There's the window.
There it is.
It's not very often that Sean wears something and I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I got to give you credit for every time you wear the PSG Nike collab hoodie, it gets me. And the black Hurley hat with the white logo goes with it. I got to say, you picked the right Hurley hat with this one.
I wear this one a lot. I have another one that's a little bit more pink and black and purple and kind of cool. Matches a shirt or a watch I have. So
yeah,
I haven't worn that one as much, but it's hoodie season. For me, it's like hoodie season all year round, but
it is.
The G-Shock watch could have been left in last decade, but it's all good. It's all good. I know you love those.
I do like this one. I have another one I haven't worn as much, but it is a good one.
Only other thing I got is Stockton is underway. Lindsey Harding got her first win, 140 plus points. I haven't gotten to watch it yet. They're going to play again tonight. I'm going to tune into that one and get caught up here soon. Like James mentioned earlier, Kobe was playing crazy. He had 8 steals in that game.
8 steals.
Ridiculous. Yeah, tune into Stockton. They got a roster. I'm just saying. They're not bad.
I thought it was interesting that Jalen Slauson was with the Kings last night in LA.
You got to manage your availability on your 2 ways.
Yeah, that's
he got into the final few seconds too.
And so did Philip Petrushchev.
His debut, right?
Yeah. I think he got a minute 11 or something. I was looking down. I didn't even see it. I'm like, oh.
He just went out and stood in one spot. He stood in one spot for 11 seconds.
He's tall. Maybe it was 11 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did meet him in the locker room. He was very nice. He's quiet.
Yeah. My final thoughts would just be college basketball's back. It's really a lot of fun. And
Oh.
regionally, I don't think a lot of people spend enough time going to Davis and Sac State games, but they're really a lot of fun. Was at Sac State. Checked out both teams already, but was at the game where Sac State set a D1 record in the 1991 to present era for points scored in a game. They whooped up on Pacific Union. Most people have no idea where that is, but it's an NAIA or NIAA, whatever it is, school in Napa, and they laid 100. They went 64 points first half, 64 points second half.
Ooh, that's a lot.
That's a lot, 128, and a lot of records set for David set on that night for David Patrick's group. So go check out the Hornets. They're going to be out of that abomination called the Nest, which has no business being a Division I basketball program gym, and sounds like they're going to be moving into the Well, which still isn't good enough, but it's better than the Nest. The Well is like a recreation facility that was built on campus of Sac State years ago. It's nice.
Oh, that's embarrassing though, that you're not even getting in a stadium.
Well, this is like what I call a Band-Aid on a broken bone, which it's not your end all be all. It's just a placeholder until hopefully they can get something done.
Okay.
Which feels like years away and decades away. It's been way too long. But if you've ever been in the Nest, it's only holds 1,000 people.
Ooh, brutal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're done. I don't. We covered every topic I can think of. A little different today. Shout out to Blue Wire. We've joined Blue Wire. Shout out to PrizePick. PrizePicks is sponsoring the show. And you're going to get some ads in the audio version of this now. Yeah, that's just life. It is. We do a lot of hard work here to keep this thing rolling and put in a lot of time and effort. And so those ads will help us continue to do this and grow. Outside of that, it should be an interesting week. We got the Kings versus Victor Wembanyama on Friday night. That, of course, is part of the in-season tournament. Kings already have a +7 in the in-season tournament. Minnesota has a little bit higher point differential right now, right?
But I think they're also 2-0, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're 2-0. So this is a slightly important game when it comes to the in-season tournament. I would also point out that Draymond Green, God bless his heart, got suspended for 5 games. He will miss the 5 games leading up to the next matchup against the Sacramento Kings, which will also be the in-season tournament. So you're welcome, says the NBA. You get Draymond Green back just in time to play the Kings.
I nailed that one, the length of games.
Yeah, me too.
I was pretty proud of myself.
I talked about that on the air, and he's going to get 5 games. That's what my first thought was. And the next time, when there's a next time, because there will be, I think the league is ready to slay Dre. It's gonna get ugly. Yeah, I think 10 games is a minimum, but it's probably gonna be a lot more than that. Like, I think they've had it. They've had it up to here.
What are you talking about? Like, if he did something similar?
Well, yeah, but how many times he's done something similar?
And how much media is it bringing to the league, though? Like, I think there's an aspect.
I know.
Is it fully horrible for the league?
No, it's not. It's not.
It's just not the brand of basketball they want. Like,
look,
the league is filled.
If they were concerned about sending a message and all that stuff, and granted, the lack of money that he's, again, I know he makes a lot of money, but he's not.
It's almost $800,000, man.
That's a lot.
Of money.
That's a lot. If they were really concerned, they wouldn't have him come back on national TV against Sacramento in Sacramento.
No, that's true. Boy, is he going to get booed.
Yeesh. Yeah, that they want to see that.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
I want to see that.
Probably wants to see
By the way,
it.
That game here in Sacramento, the last when they showed him for like the splittest second up on the big board, and he gave a high or something like that in his street clothes, or I think whatever it was, deuces, whatever he showed was brilliant. The whole place responded with boos. It was so great.
Yeah, he's not well liked in the Sacramento area.
Oh, he would be if he was on this team. If he was a King tomorrow, people would line up to shake his hand. Yeah,
maybe. Probably.
I know that I get it. People get tired of Draymond's antics and all that stuff. And there's people that was that you or that was you?
That was my fun. That doesn't usually happen.
No, it doesn't.
My ringer's never on.
But to me, this is entertainment business. I mean, I will say there was no one that looked more pissed off when he was doing his farewell lap than Joe Lacob standing there courtside watching him do it. So don't get me wrong. I think there is a fatigue that goes with it, and there are certain antics that get old and all that stuff. But
getting ejected twice in 10 games is kind of impressive.
Back to back.
It's
right?
pretty insane.
Wasn't it back to back?
There might be one in between. I'm not sure, but yeah, Cleveland and Minnesota.
Or no, he got into it with Anthony Edwards, and that's what sparked this on.
Dude, this happened before a single point was scored in the game.
Yeah.
Like, what?
You just don't want to injure the dude. Like, that's where I think this one went overboard. Well, I mean, it went overboard when he kicked Steven Adams in the cojones. It went overboard when he stomped on Domantas Sabonis. But like, there was like during this scuffle, there was like a risk of Rudy Gobert injuring himself while he's being dragged backwards.
Rudy's like this. Can someone just get him off me?
Yeah,
and
like
Cat did nothing.
No, Cat's just like, please.
And if anyone listens to Pat Beverly's podcast,
that was spectacular. That was brilliant.
Great podcast, by the way.
Yeah, laid into Cat, like, and just all of them, just like, hey, that's who you are now. Good luck with that. Good luck with that in a 7-game series against the Warriors, because he's going to do that to you the whole time.
Warriors kind of scuffling a little bit.
They are.
Curry out with the knee. Hopefully not too serious. Sounds like it's not.
Clippers are scuffling.
Clay looks really bad. That's not going to help him with his looking for his money. Yeah, it's tough.
Brutal. All right, listen to this thing. That's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast, brought to you by PrizePicks. We'll be back later this week. We're actually got another pod to do. After the Wembanyama game, we'll hit something on Saturday. So make sure to look for that. So for Fox 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Bulls podcast, I am James Hammer, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you soon.